Rising community, and welcome to another session in the series Passion, Purpose, and Profit. And today I'm delighted to have Dr. Lance Secretan with us, and he is the world's top authority on inspirational leadership, a trailblazer teacher, mentor, advisor, and leadership coach, ranked fourth in the world, and a world authority on corporate culture. For his 24 books about inspiration, corporate culture, and leadership, he has received numerous teaching, writing, and humanitarian awards, and is an expert skier, kayaker, and mountain biker, dividing his time between Ontario and Colorado. So welcome, Dr. Lance. You are quite an adventurer, I can tell.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Right. I love it that you do so many sports, and it's quite on the edge kind of thrillers, right?
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
Right. And so I would love to dive into your different outlook on leadership. I'm super curious to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you. And our work really has been about trying to understand why things are so broken. In business, especially, whenever I do surveys, 80% of the population says they'd give up their day jobs if they had a free choice. Mm-hmm. And we spend $170 billion a year on leadership development. We've got 240,000 books on Amazon about leadership, and yet it's broken in the capitals of the world, in politics, in corporations, in academia, in healthcare, in police, in the Roman Catholic Church. It doesn't really matter where you look, it's broken. So then the question becomes, well, why? And the answer to that, I think, is that we have been motivating people for a long time. And motivation is a fear-based system. Basically, it's a reward or a punishment. And that's the system we've used for human resources, for leadership, for running businesses, and so on. But I don't know about you, but we don't need to be motivated. What we really need is to be inspired. And inspiration comes from the heart. It's from love. So I smell a rose because the rose inspires me, and I love the rose. And I go to a movie that inspires me. I go to a restaurant that inspires me. I fall in love with someone that inspires me. I work for companies that inspire me. I listen to music that inspires me. Whenever the inspiration stops, I go away. So simple as that. Marriages, for example, are always strong when they're inspiring. As soon as they're not inspiring, it's over.
Right. So you make that distinction between motivation and inspiration. And what sounds to me, I would love to hear what you say, is that motivation needs a lot of willpower, right? It's you constantly have to grind those willpower energies to do something, whereas inspiration just kind of carries you through that flow.
Well, I describe it this way. Motivation is lighting a fire under someone, and inspiration is lighting a fire within someone. The difference between motivation and inspiration is the motivation is about me. I need you to do something that I need. I need you to go faster or make more, or go on a diet, or wear a better dress, or whatever I need to motivate you to do because I need something. But with inspiration, I don't need anything. I just want you to be successful. I want you to be happy. I want you to do whatever it is you need to do better than you're doing it now. And I'll help you. That's inspiration.
Right. And in terms of like from within the inner power, how does it different with motivation and inspiration? Because you were referring to somebody else. But if I need to be doing something? How does motivation and inspiration move me differently?
Well, the measures that we can typically look at are that motivation is measured with success. Inspiration is measured with joy.
Mm-hmm.
Different currency. So the other thing that's different is that motivation is good for the short term. So I'm not saying motivation is bad, because there are times when we need to motivate. For instance, if there's a fire in the building, I want to motivate you to get out of it. But it's not a long-term idea. Motivation takes too much energy. So we end up getting tired if we're always trying to motivate people and always being motivated. Whereas inspiration doesn't take the same effort, as you say. And the value of inspiration is that it's long-lasting. So if I'm inspired about a rose, I'm probably going to be inspired by a rose forever. It's unlikely that I'll be uninspired for some reason by a rose.
Right. I like that. I've heard somewhere that inspiration, you can almost say in-spirited, right? You in spirit, so you in that energy of the beyond.
Well, it comes from the Latin word spirare, which means breath. So in fact, inspire, I breathe in.
Beautiful, yeah. And what do you breathe in if not spirit and all that is, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So let's go back to leadership, because you touched on something that is really valid, that leadership in every sector is, as you said, broken. And what is your outlook on leadership? You know, for me, I feel that leadership starts from within, from inner sovereign leadership. One needs to first learn how to guide, direct, and lead themselves before they can lead others. What is your outlook on that?
Well, I think my feeling these days is that we don't need leadership. We need inspiration. I think we're too focused on the idea of we want a leader, or we want someone to lead us, or I have to lead myself, or I have to lead other people. No, we have to inspire. And it's the same no matter what domain we're in, whether with our children, with our spouses, with our families, with our friends, with our customers, with our boss, with our colleagues, any of those domains, it's the same rule. Whatever, if you inspire me, I'll do anything.
All right, so then comes the big question: how do we inspire?
Well, as I said, inspiration comes from love.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about that word a lot in the business setting.
Mm-hmm.
But if I love my boss, if I love my work, I love my colleagues, I love what we do and the effect we have in the world with the things or services we make, then I'm inspired. Mm. So love becomes the bedrock on which inspiration gets built. Loving relationships are inspiring, not just with people, but with insects or with squirrels or with anybody, anything. You know, the relationship with our pets, our dogs, our cats, they inspire us because we love them.
Oh, true. So you say that it is about bringing the heart connection into our business and our interactions.
Yeah. I was speaking at a conference in New Zealand the other day, and I was looking at I was one of many speakers, and I was looking at the agenda. And the agenda, this is a World Business Forum. So the agenda is working with digital formats, how to inspire and motivate employees when they're working from home, how to generate greater creativity, how to improve performance. Every single subject on the agenda was about how we squeeze more out of people. Nothing about mental health, about the heart, about inspiring people, about making sure that they feel healthy and they have meaning and fulfillment in their lives, that they have a joy in their step, that they love the people they work with. I mean, none of these subjects. So if we just took all that first group and threw it away and said, let's just work on the second group of things I just mentioned, we'd build great companies.
I agree. I mean, I can see it very clearly. For me, it's absolutely a given that you know, when we have that flow of love, then we can do so much more, right? I mean, that's really the currency of connection.
Yeah, and if I see you not as a means of production, but as a human being who has children, is married, or is lonely, or is not well, or whatever else I need to know about you in order for me to make a connection with you. If I just see you as a producer of widgets, then I don't know anything about you. I can't connect to you. I certainly can't inspire you, because you feel you're just a machine and I'm just trying to get more pieces out of the machine. And that's, I would say, 80% of how businesses run these days. So it's not a pretty picture. And on the other hand, we know the answer. It's very strange that as human beings, we are very slow to copy the success of others. So if you look at companies like Southwest Airlines, for example, every other airline functions differently than Southwest. Southwest is a company that's made a profit every year for 40 years. All the other airlines have gone bankrupt and got taken over and merged and so on. They're a mess. But wouldn't you think somebody in one of those big airline companies would say, what are they doing over at Southwest? Maybe we should copy what they're doing. But, it doesn't happen. So those companies keep going bankrupt and Southwest keeps doing better. So we know what to do. It's kind of like dieting. I know how to diet. I don't need to read a book about this. I know this. I've read 20 books already. And I know what to do. I just don't want to do it. And inspiration is a little harder because it takes a little longer. It takes a little more time. Motivation I can do quickly with you because I can hold a gun to your head and say, you've got to do this, and you'll be motivated. But inspiration, I can't do that. So it takes a little longer. I have to work with you. I have to learn and understand who you are. I have to make a connection with you. I have to make sure that you feel safe with me, and so on. So lots of things that take a little time to build. But once we get there, then it's magic.
Right. Yeah, I almost want to say that as a woman, it resonates so very naturally with me. It's almost like, of course, like that's the way to,
Right.
run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I know. And that's the way I feel about my work. I can't, what's so difficult to understand here? This is not rocket science. It's easy. You like people, you inspire them, they do amazing things. It's just the end of the story. What's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm starting to see what you're saying about this difference, and thinking about me as a mother with my children. Definitely when I inspire them, it's completely different to motivate them. And I can definitely see the difference there.
Yeah. And when you're in a hurry, you will motivate them. And when you have the time, you will inspire them.
Right. And when I inspire them, it definitely goes so much further. They find the fire from within. So I almost light their fire, but then they burn with it themselves, if that makes sense. Whereas with motivation, I mean, if I want them to clean, for instance, and I motivate them to do that, it's every time I start from scratch, feels like, right? We go to the same point. Yeah.
Right. One of the things that we teach a couple of thoughts that I'll share with you about inspiration. One is, most people don't know why they're here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they are here to raise kids, have a career, retire, and die. But we're here for more than that. And so we have a whole process we take people through, which helps them to identify three things. One, what is your destiny?
Mm-hmm.
What's the higher purpose of your life? Secondly, and in that, by the way, how will you make a difference? When this is all finished and you leave, will we be able to say, you made the world better?
Mm-hmm.
That's your destiny. Secondly, character. What is your character? What are the values that you're going to live with and live by? And how do you want people to know you?
Mm-hmm.
Will they know you as charming, as intelligent, as loving, or as cruel or mean or aggressive? How do you want people to know you? Character. And lastly, calling. What are your gifts and talents, and how are you going to use them to serve the world? And we call that answers three questions. Why are you here? How are you going to be while you're here? And what are you going to do? We call that the why be do. The why be do, when you know at a deep level why you're here, how you want to be while you're here, and what you're going to do with your life, you will be inspired. That's how we fill up our own tank. We also have dreams. That's the other thing that's very important for inspiration. Everybody needs a dream. And those dreams can change, and they can be big and small, doesn't matter. As long as you have a dream, very important. If you lose your dream, it's very hard to be inspired. And lastly, in terms of filling up our own tank, we want to change our language. You will notice that we use phrases like, it blew me away. I destroyed something. I conquered something. Let's go to the war room. Let's have a war on drugs or a war on terror. We constantly use war metaphors in our language. And when we do that, we create stress hormones in the other person's physiology. Therefore, if I were to say to you, well, I'm blown away by the fact that we're meeting and you've invited me to be here, I mean to be very inspiring, but the language I chose is uninspiring. Therefore, I undo what I'm trying to do. Mm. So we teach people to be sure that you are cleaning up your language, that you're not using the language of war, because the language of war is toxic. Mm. And we use it all the time. That's the first thing. The second thing is that once we've got our own tank filled, as it were, with inspiration, because you can't inspire if you're not inspired. Mm-hmm. If you're uninspired, it's very hard to be inspiring for other people. You can do it for a little while, you can fake it, but not for long. And so we have this system we call the castle principles. So how this works is I asked people years ago, what do you not like about other people? And they said, we don't like cowards. We don't like people who are phony. We don't like people who are selfish. We don't like liars. We don't like people who rule with fear. And we don't like idiots, incompetent people. So we said, well, why don't we just do the opposite? The opposite is courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, and effectiveness. That spells an acronym called CASTLE. So if we want to inspire other people, we need to be courageous, authentic, serve others, tell the truth, be loving, and be effective. Living the CASTLE principles. If we do that, we'll create inspiration. That's an automatic recipe.
Yeah, exactly. Love the acronym. I love acronyms. And this is exactly what the qualities that we need to cultivate, for that conscious business. I mean, that's really what's needed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely right. So that's the work that we do. We do that with corporations. We do it with individuals. I'm spending a lot of my time teaching now, and it's the world that we can create will be a world that is inspiring, or the world that we want to create is a world that's inspiring. When we look at the war in Ukraine, what do you think we could do if we were inspiring as opposed to killing each other? There's such a possibility. It's true in Israel too, by the way. Israel and the Palestinians could easily inspire each other and learn to be together. It's a big journey from where we are now, but it's the journey we have to take.
Yeah, exactly. I always tend to say that, when it comes to the people, people can meet in that heart space, in that love space, as you mentioned. But when the leaders are in conflict and there's other things in the midst of it, right, like politics and land and money and oil and religion and whatever the case may be, then it becomes so super messy. But on a human level, it's very, very different. Yeah,
and that's the experience that we having over and over again. We're not learning quickly enough, that's for sure.
Right. And tell me, do you find that corporates are open to these kind of teachings? Do they receive it with open arms? Do you find resistance? Do some corporates, kind of cooperate more than others?
Yeah, I would say it's mixed. And there's a very strong resistance to this kind of thinking, because I think people think of it as fluffy. And think of it as kind of California, and some new age or something like that. And immediately dismiss it before they understand it. And so if you look at politics, how politics is very aggressive, a lot of warrior language, very uninspiring. Let's find politicians that actually are inspiring, and they will change the world.
Yeah, hallelujah for those. I do have hope with where we are heading towards. When I see, even people like my son, he's 18 and he's on another level of understanding and just heart, as you said, heart and integrity, and that gives me a lot of hope to where we are heading. I think that is definitely huge awakening, and really what you're talking about for me is the feminine principles coming on board, right? Because business was run for so long in the patriarchal paradigm, still is to a very large extent, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that if you look at someone like Nelson Mandela, for example, a perfect example of inspiration. We are inspired today. He's not even here anymore, and we're inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really such a lighthouse in the world. Is just phenomenal what he did.
And why do you think the leaders that followed him didn't continue the same approach?
Well, it takes a Mandela for that. He was just, for me, he's a conscious, aware, awake being, Unfortunately, the next leaders were not quite the same.
Correct, yeah. So why not? Why wouldn't, it's like the Southwest Airlines example. Why wouldn't I look at Nelson Mandela? I'm the new leader. I look at him and say, wow, look how popular he is. Look how everybody loves him. I need to do what he does. Instead, they do something completely different.
Right. But then comes, greed and ego and, sense false of power and unresolved pain, unresolved issues. I think that's what really stands in the way for especially for our world leaders. I like to say that, it's for many leaders, not only in politics and it can be business leaders, but many people are adults in, they I like to say children in adults' shells. They look like adults, but they actually really just, you know, immature children that are still
Yeah,
playing their
yeah,
games, right?
yeah, 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 I agree. That's the experience I think we all bump into, which is that a lot of people are not awake, they're not paying attention, they're not learning, and they're old. You know, in the U.S., for example, the average age of of Congress is 70, and these people can't even operate computers. So, you know, these are our leaders, and they're not even learning how to use a computer, let alone how to inspire thousands of other people. So, you know, we have some work to do.
Yeah, we definitely have some work to do. And then again, as I said, I'm looking at the younger generation, and it's quite promising for me. I don't know if you feel the same, but I'm quite inspired by what I see.
Young people, I agree, because they can see what isn't working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they can say, I don't want to do this. And they are doing that. And the great resignation is all about people saying, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just came from the dentist. My hygienist was telling me that one of her best friends is a nurse. And the nurse was told she can't come to work unless she's vaccinated. So she didn't want to do that. She was told she could come to work if she had COVID, as long as she wore a mask. So trying to understand the science behind that, right? So in the end, she said, I'm not doing this anymore. And she learned how to do Botox, you know, in the face. And she's opened up a clinic, and now she's running her own Botox clinic. And she's never been happier, never made more money, never been more inspired. And healthcare lost a wonderful employee.
Yeah,
We need to learn from
that's
that.
a whole conversation about the madness around COVID, right? We can have a whole full conversation about that. The good thing,
Yeah.
though, is that it did shake a lot of people from where they were and made them reevaluate, you know, their life and what they want to do and where they want to go. So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Look at us. Here we are on Zoom. We wouldn't have done this without COVID. That's one of the benefits. Because Zoom was kind of clunky video conferencing before, but COVID came along and they had to really up their game, and Teams and WebEx and all the others. And so now, you know, I think we are approaching the era where artificial intelligence will make this experience that we're having now feel the same as if we were together. Maybe almost, maybe just a tiny bit. I can't smell your breath, for example, but maybe that's coming too. You know, who knows? Anyway, as long as we're open and curious and welcoming, then we can be inspired by all of these changes, the opportunities that are coming along.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're heading. So we might as well go on the ride and really count the blessings. I'm sure there are blessings in this road as well.
Yeah. And the thing, the reason that we're not inspiring as much as we want to be is that one of the reasons is we're playing with an old playbook and we don't want to learn a new one. But the other reason is that we're so busy. So and part of the busyness is stress. And stress is a very important subject in our time because stress is a choice. So if I'm driving in my car and I head to the highway on the service road and I join the highway and somebody cuts me off, I have a choice. I can yell and scream, flip the bird, call them names, say they're an idiot, wind my window down, scream at them, and so on. I can do all those things. My heart rate is going crazy. My blood pressure is going through the roof, and I'm taking minutes or hours off my life by wearing out my body. That's my choice. Or I can just wave and smile, let him drive on, and be grateful for the wonderful life I have. It's a choice. So stress is absolutely a choice. And the way we become more inspired is to say, I will not do that. I refuse to do stress. So when I go and have a medical, a doctor will say to me, how's your stress levels? It's a standard question in medicine. And I say, I don't do stress. It's an irrelevant question. I don't have any stress, so there's nothing to say. I can't answer that question. The right question the doctor should be asking is, have you removed stress from your life yet? Have you made the choice? Have you made the decision that you're not going to be stressed by anything? So we need to choose not to be stressed. It's a choice. It's an option. We can make up our minds one way or the other. We can continue to do this, burn ourselves out, and be tired and frustrated and uninspiring. Stressed people are not inspiring. You don't even feel like you have their presence with you. Because they're always in a hurry, always trying to get to the next thing, always complaining about something. Just let it go.
Right. Well, that's the work, right? I mean, that's really, I feel, is the work of self-development, because what triggers us and creates that almost reptilian response, right? It's almost not a conscious response. And if that's the case, if it's so triggering, then the first thing is that we need to know that there's something suppressed in us that we have to let go of and release in a healthy way. Maybe anger, or maybe even grief, sadness, something that is suppressed in the body. And then what you describe is you know, an incident on the road, that one can react in this way and another can respond in this way, is really not about the event, it's about what it brings in us.
Yeah,
right? So if
of
you
course.
work and you release all that pain, then you can choose then, okay, well, I'll just let it slide and I'll stay in my happiness state. But
Yeah.
if it really, you know, just bursts the reptilian response and you know, makes your blood go to the head and you can't even control yourself, then there is some work to do there. Right?
Yeah. But we can't go on blaming our reptilian brain forever. There has to come a time when we say, I'm going to do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if we just left it to the reptilian brain, then we'd be robbing and raping and burning, and life would be chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
We have to exert some control, and we have to exert some positive contribution as opposed to negative. So as you say, stress is simply how we react.
Mm-hmm.
The event is the same. Doesn't matter whether we choose to be stressed or not. The event is the same. The only difference is going to be how we react.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if we choose not to react negatively or aggressively, then it isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So these are keys to how to be inspired. So if your life is full of stress and you're reacting that way all the time, it's going to be very hard for you to be inspiring. And in fact, you'll more likely be motivated, because you'll be short of time. You'll be trying to terrorize people to do things and to manipulate them, to control them, to make sure their behavior conforms to what you are expecting or wanting.
Right. So the new question is, how do you remove stress from your life? Right? How, or have you removed stress from your life?
Well, there is no such thing as stress. We're talking about a reaction. Now that's what we call stress. My reaction is aggressive and negative and frustrated and angry. Therefore, I'm stressed. But if my reaction was different, I wouldn't be stressed. So it's only about really our reactions. How do you want to react to things? You choose. You could be saying to me now, this is the worst interview I've ever had, and you are the ugliest person that's ever been on my show, and I'm fed up with our conversation. And I would have a choice then. If you said that to me, I get mad. How dare you? Do all that. Or I can just say, oh, well, thank you for letting me know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all in the narrative of the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Yeah, that's the work. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you think we can change the world that way?
Inspiring. Yeah.
How do we change the world?
How do
You're in
we-
the business of changing the world, so how are you going to do it?
Well, I think it starts from me working on myself so that I walk my talk, I do my work, I keep my state, of happiness and stress-free, and by that I'm already inspiring others. And yeah, I personally, I think it's about service. It's about finding an outlet, whatever is your jam or your choice or your preference, but finding a way where you can serve others.
Yes, which is the third castle principle. Yeah, and you see, when we talk about corporations, service is not we talk about it a lot, but it's not actually present a lot. So even with customers, we don't always serve very well. But it's even worse with employees. And one of the things I think that I teach in my work with leaders is that we need to reframe who is number one. Forever, the customer has been number one. But I think that's a mistake. The employee should be number one. Because if we get it right with the employees, they'll take care of the customer. But if we ask employees to look after customers and we don't take care of the employee, they're not going to do well. And I do a lot of work in healthcare, and in healthcare systems, I've heard many times people say to me, this organization wants me to do things for customers that the company won't do for me. And that, you can imagine, is uninspiring. So we can do it for a while because there's a paycheck and I've got a job and then I'll do what I have to do. But in the end, it becomes uninspiring, and in the end, people leave or are burned out. And so if we were to just turn this whole model upside down and say the number one priority in the organization is people. We take care of those people, we spoil them, we look after them, we inspire them, they'll do anything. They'll do anything. So we have it upside down. We keep beating up people in companies to be a better service to customers without thinking, well, what about the employee? Does the employee need anything? And more money, as you've seen from the Great Resignation, is not the answer. That's not what people are looking for. It's nice to have more money, but meaning, fulfillment, appreciation, opportunities to grow, inspiration, these are the things people want. Pay me more of that and I'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. It's, when you're talking about a company that is an organization, employees are the driving force of that company. That's the engine. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so a change of thinking that would involve putting employees first. And this, by the way, is also the Southwest model. So employees first, customers second, shareholders third, which is also important. For many companies, shareholders is second or first. But people, customers, shareholders, in that order. It's exactly right. That's what makes Southwest so successful. And I don't mean to pick on them. There are other companies, Patagonia, another good example. Lots of companies that are like this, and it's paying off for them.
Mm-hmm.
A great success.
Right. I mean, I've heard, some entrepreneurs talking about them moving their entire organization, entire company into, 4-day a week work, and giving their employees more time off and, less hours to work. And they actually, the result is a lot more productivity and a lot more loyalty and happiness among the workers. Yeah.
Right. Why do we think in hours anymore? We don't, other than maybe you could argue accountants and lawyers, maybe there's room still for that, although I think that's debatable. But everywhere else, why would we use hours? I don't buy an hour of anything anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I buy an end product or service. I buy something that has utility, either a physical thing or a service. But it's the end result I'm buying, not the hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care how many hours you put in. If you do it in 2 hours and someone else does it in 10 hours, I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I have what I need as a customer. So why do we even think this anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So, we're getting a lot of dysfunctional things happening at the moment where companies are telling their employees, you've got to come back to work. And the reality is that's a mistake. So we're losing people that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe more and more will be entrepreneurs rather than work for others, right?
Well, or the company should become more entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, be like the person imagines their new company might be. So I'd rather work for a company and have them pick up all the expenses and all the overhead and the infrastructure and all that stuff, and then me have to worry about it, and I can be entrepreneurial. That'd be much better than me having to pay a landlord and my taxes and all the rest of it that I have to do as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So make the company like I want it to be if I were running it myself, and I'll be inspired.
Right, that's a new model right there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's where we could be going, and I think some companies are going that way. We have a company in Canada that's called Magna. Magna is the largest manufacturer in the world of parts for cars. And it was started by a man called Frank Stronach in the 1950s. He was from Austria. He emigrated to Montreal. And one of the things that he decided when he started the company was nothing would be bigger than 100. So if you built a plant that was making windshield wipers and you got to have 100 employees, if you wanted to grow, you had to start a new factory. So you add more people. And so that factory can grow to 100, but if you want to grow that one more, you have to do another one. So now he has like hundreds of these factories all over the world, none of them bigger than 100. Now, some have grown to be bigger than that, but very few. But most of them are 100. That was the rule. Because he would argue, for example, I can't remember everybody's birthdays more than 100 people. I don't know whether they have children or what places they live in, or anything about them. It's just too many people. I can't do that. So we keep it down to 100 people. I know everybody. I have a connection with everybody. I can have an opportunity to be inspiring together, and we can build a great family, an entrepreneurial business. And look what's happened. This is the biggest company in the world in its field. They're so big, they actually have offices inside the car making companies, Chrysler and Fiat and so on. Because they're so integrated with them. they're part of their manufacturing. If you look at a BMW Z4 car, that's made by Magna, not made by BMW. They make the whole car, but with 100 limit people. This is, again, another model that we could be looking at and say, you know, this is magical. Why don't we all do that? There's another company in Spain called Mondragon. It's a cooperative. It's one of the largest companies in the world too. It's a co-op. So actually the employees own the company. And there, you know, you can't get much more entrepreneurial than that. You go to work for a big company, but actually I own this company. I own part of it. I don't own it all, but I own some of it. And what I do here makes a difference in terms of how I'm paid, how successful the company is. Everything depends on that. So it's inspiring. Mondragon, it's a wonderful company to look up.
Yeah, that seems like where we are heading, the new era of business. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to be negative, but I think that sometimes some of the big companies especially are stuck in an old way. And I think they're going to be in trouble if they can't get their heads turned around. Maybe it'll come with new leaders. Maybe we just need to let the current leaders retire and let the young people like your son take over.
Exactly, and crumbling of all the old systems as we know them, which is already happening. Yeah,
it's crumbling. Right. So I hope that this is a useful conversation in terms of rethinking, you know, how do we approach this whole subject of work, which is something that we spend more than a third of our lives doing. We spend more time working than sleeping.
Yeah.
Most people. But we need to get it right. We need to get it better. And if you ask random number of people, do you love your work? Are you inspired by your work? You'll get a very mixed bunch of responses. A lot of people say, are you kidding me? No, it's a job. I just get a paycheck and that's fine. And as soon as I can get out of here, I'm done.
Probably
that's
most.
A tragedy.
Yeah, probably
that's
most.
Tragedy. How could we spend our lives doing this? We can't go through our lives saying, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. That's terrible.
And what a waste. What a waste of, you know, beautiful. I mean, you know, for me, each person has unique gifts and talents and skills. And, you know, as you said, every one of us here has a destiny, has a mission. And to be lost in some, you know, unfulfilling job is just such a waste of life and mission.
Yes, exactly. So we need to commit ourselves to not doing that. We need to make a resolution in our lives, whatever it takes. I want to live an inspiring life. If that means changing my job, I do that. If it means changing my spouse, I'm going to do that. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. Because I don't want to die with my music still inside me.
Exactly. And on that very powerful note, I want to bring our conversation to a wrap. We are at the end of our time together. And I know that you have a beautiful gift to share with the audience, so I'll let you speak into that.
All right. So yes, well, a couple of gifts. One would be the Spirit at Work app. So if you go to the Apple Store or the Android Store and put in Spirit at Work, so Spirit and the little round A, Work. It's a free app. It's 77 cards. And you shake the phone, it shuffles the cards, and you can pick a card for the day, and it will guide you for the day. And then there's all kinds of narratives and explanations and videos and so on that go with the app. There's an upgrade version. And we also have started an organization called the Higher Ground Community. And the Higher Ground Community meets once a week. And what we do is maybe there are other people on the call, and I'm at the other end. I have my app, they all do it too. So I ask people on the call, shake your phone, choose a card. And that's the card we talk about. So for example, it's I give you this illustration. If I were to say to you, let's have a conversation about intimacy. This would be an unlikely thing for me to say, because I don't know you well enough to start a conversation about intimacy yet. But if I shake my phone and the card is intimacy, say, oh, look at the card, I have to talk about intimacy. So it gives me permission. So we go deep because we can. And because the app is guiding us to a conversation that's rich, challenging, inspiring, and everybody leaves those calls feeling better than when they arrive. So that's called the High Ground Community.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll have all the links here below. And if people want to connect with you, find more about your work, follow you, what's the best places to find you?
Yeah, secretan.com, secretan.com.
Right, your website.
Yeah.
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 All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing in the world. It is so very needed. And I'm sure you bring a lot of magic wherever you go. So thank you so much and bless you.
Yeah, bless you too. It's been a joy to be here.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And for you, dear audience, thank you for watching until the end. And please purchase the VIP ticket so you have these conversations to watch again and again, because there is so much value in each and every session. And until the next time we meet, lots of love from me, your host, Nuna Isi. Goodbye now. Ciao.
Bye.